Hey everyone, this is Sal Valencia, your financial pal with Edward Jones. For those who don't know me, I am an advisor that will sit down with you and go over your personal and financial goals. I will break them into 3 categories: needs, wants, and wishes. I enjoy working through life challenges with my clients and help educate those who aren't familiar with investing. If you ever have questions and need someone reliable and trustworthy, give me a call. My number is 336-748-1271. Hola, me llamo Salvador Valencia y trabajo con Edward Jones. Soy un asesor financiero y lo que hago es planear para el futuro. Sé que hay muchos cambios que pueden ocurrir, pero siempre estará ahí por ustedes cuando pase algo. Si tienen preguntas sobre inversiones o cómo su dinero puede trabajar más fuerte para ustedes, llámame. Mi número es 336-748-1271.
Welcome to the Heath Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Well. I've had my coffee this morning, and I've been ruminating on the beautiful weather and...
That's my coffee this morning.
Oh, there's Tim over there.
I'm drinking my water.
It sounds like it's been iced. But anyway...
It is, because I don't drink hot.
So how happy are you?
If I was any happier, I'd be a twin.
Ooh, and how about you, Kristen? Another health geek in the room.
I'm smiling. Does that tell you I'm happy?
I don't think they can see that.
Oh. Can you
But they
hear
can
it?
hear it.
I'm not sure that's authentic.
Well, we're going to talk about that today, aren't we?
Yeah, no, I'm wondering if happiness, because there's a whole bunch of buzz on that word right now. Many of us are hearing it in our circles, particularly in our business circles, like, oh yeah, positivity, thought, and all that kind of stuff.
Think happy.
Yeah, but I wonder if happiness is really our natural state or not. So that's what I've been thinking about. And we have read a book called How Emotions Are Made: The Secret Life of the Brain by Feldman Barrett. Hey, if you're as interested in prevention as I am, contact me, Eleanor Russell, at 360health, number 4, letter U.com. Whether you're interested in financial wellness or physical health products, 360 Health invites you to become part of our community.
So I want to read some of the things on the back real quick.
Well, you did mention it was a fat book.
It is a thick book.
It's a Tim book.
No, Tim. This is not your book, I don't think.
Oh, no, I'm just meaning fat.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
A brilliant and original book on the science of emotion by the deepest thinker about this topic since Darwin.
Yeah.
And that was said by Daniel Gilbert, best-selling author of Stumbling on Happiness.
Yeah.
And then Forbes says it's chock full of startling science-backed findings, an entertaining and engaging read.
Yeah, while you're on this back of the book cover thing and these other recommendations, the other one is ELLE, which I guess is a magazine.
A magazine, mm-hmm.
And they have, one word, mind-blowing. I'm telling you, usually on the back there's a little more conversation about what's in the book. This book it'll blow your mind. Like they said, it's sort of like a academic epistle to me. It's more like you're going to teach a class out of this and build your vocabulary.
Yes, it's like a master class.
Yeah, so I have read it once, but I didn't soak it all up. So I'm thinking I might need to read it again and have more conversation on this book.
That's a really good point, because I do think you could read this 3 or 4 times before these things can really sink in, because it's mind-blowing and it's so different.
Yeah, and she's talking about, you said that Daniel Gilbert said something about Darwin. Since I'm a biologist, I picked in on that too. Okay, what are we going to talk about Darwin? And we did. So we'll get to that as our conversation unfolds maybe. But who is Feldman Barrett?
She's pretty awesome. So she is a university distinguished professor of psychology at Northeastern University with appointments at Harvard Medical School and Massachusetts General Hospital in psychiatry and radiology. She received an NIH Director's Pioneer Award for her research on emotion in the brain. She lives in Boston.
Yeah, and this book was published in 2017, so it's pretty current. And it's a HarperCollins, and we like our HarperCollins publishers. So this has been through quite an editorial process. And the book has got really nice bibliography and notes, and even an index, which I found very helpful. And it's a pretty I'm going to use one of her words, granular. It's a granular index, so it's pretty detailed. And if you remember something about a word like body budget and you don't remember what it was, you could find it and go back and look it up. So I appreciate the fact that this is a well-structured book. But why do we even care how emotions are made? I thought that was, when I first saw this, I thought, why are we reading this book? I'm not pulled to it. I'm not even sure how it got on our list. But I think it is a critical book. She is taking the whole classical theory of how emotions are constructed or what they are and tearing it apart and giving us another explanation. And if you accept her explanation, then so much of what we've been doing with emotional work has a new foundation that might actually work better. So this is a good read. I don't know if it's a good read.
It surprised you how important it was.
It's controversial, extremely controversial. And she challenges the state of the thinking of, when I asked you if you're happy, Tim, can you name some other emotions?
Sadness.
Yeah.
Anger.
Yeah. How about you, Kristen?
That's about it, right?
Yeah, right. We're happy, sad, or mad. And that's what we think. And she's saying that's not good enough. And she says all this classical foundation is steering us in the wrong direction. And we have a country that's got a lot of emotional health issues. Mm-hmm. And, in our reading of so many things, we talk about, and don't forget your emotional health. Well, what is that?
Right.
And how do we do that? And is it just self-regulation? Can I control my emotions? Or what? I mean, so this is really, I found it fascinating to take some time and think about it.
Mm-hmm. And she starts with, like you said, the classical view of emotions and breaking that down. So we start in kindergarten learning these faces. This means happy. This means sad. This means surprised. Uh-huh. And she's like, actually, that there's way more variability there.
It may not work.
And actors, like you think, okay, I'm going to scowl when I'm angry. But actors don't win awards for scowling to show us how angry they are. So she points out that there's better science out there, better research that suggests we're making this up. We're saying that a smile means happy. We're saying that a frown means sad. But that's not how it works in reality.
Yeah, and she tears apart all these scientific journals that people have just built, on somebody's idea that there's 6 emotions, and so then they take a picture of these actors' faces, and they give them to people and say, "What is the expression?" Well, these people couldn't do it, and she tried to repeat their experiments. And and in science, we talk about you have a hypothesis, you test it, you report it, and then people say, well, I don't believe that. I'm going to try that too and see if I get the same results. So that reproducibility of results is huge in accepting a finding as the best explanation for that hypothesis that we had. So she tested some of these old reports and did the thing, and people couldn't discriminate between those things. They'd look at the smile, and they have a picture of the tennis player.
Serena Williams.
Yeah, and she's there's just a close-up of her face, and it looks like she's about to bite somebody, And they asked people what the expression was, and they got all sorts of responses. But then you zone back out, and she's just celebrating her win. She's excited.
But it looked maybe like fear or surprise.
Yeah, so this author is saying, how do we make sense of this? Because we all are getting different results here. So maybe there's something wrong with our premise of how the classical theory of emotions. I think it's funny, though, that at the bottom line, she says, what you need to do is move your body, create a nice environment, eat well, get your sleep, and your emotions will be better. So given that, we're going to tease down into some of the detail, right?
Right. Yeah.
So do you want to start, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
Interoception. That's a
you're
new
gonna start
word.
there. Okay.
So we've read books about flavor and about smell. Remember the nosedive? Mm-hmm. And flavor. And we've talked about stimuli. And we have receptors that pick up on these chemical senses or these smells or sights. And all that goes into this thing we call our brain. And we think the brain is organized like a neuroanatomy class.
In different
compartments
that act
Work-
separately
yep.
or work
Yep.
separately. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case.
According to her, this is, I think, can be challenged, so I don't know that I can challenge it because I don't think I've got the foundation to do that. But it'd be interesting to see if anybody responds to this in her world.
Well, she says she's not the only one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So you get all this stuff in there, and so you have this need to control your body, your heart rate, your breathing, your digestion, move your muscles. It all requires energy. And so she comes up with this body budgeting system.
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite part of the book.
Okay. And before we get there, so we have the interoception. So it's what's going on inside your body. Also, there's sensory receptors in there that your body's monitoring. So you got that stuff on the inside, and you got the stuff coming from the outside, and then you have to make sense of that and do something or not do something. And so we've had a lot of conversation in our reading about the stress response, and we may talk about it again.
And habit loops.
Yes, about, a trigger and then an action and then a resolution, and then it goes around again. And so there are chemicals and neurotransmitters, and cortisol is one of the ones that she talks about in here. But what she's saying is we're getting all this input, and then our brain is constantly predicting what it might mean. It's maybe half the time we're awake, it's bing, 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 it could be this, could be that, could be that. And it's trying to make sense of the input. And so you get these intrinsic networks and this prediction that's going on. And then the brain simulates, well, it could be this or it could be that. And then it decides, I'm going to compare it to what I've heard before or seen before, my past experience. That's the most likely thing. So that's what I'm going to think about this. And then I'm going to act, and then I'm going to resolve. And that's a complete cycle.
And all this is happening without
Us even knowing.
us knowing, and so instantaneously.
And so your energy is being consumed and it has to be replaced, consumed and replaced. And so, okay, that's the loop that she puts out there.
So can I talk about body budget
Yes,
now?
you sure can.
Okay. I just think it's so exciting to have these new terms and words around this because you'll see why. Okay, so the most important job that our brain has is to control all the systems of our body.
To keep us alive, right?
Right. And the technical name for this is allostasis, right? But she uses this body budget term because it can relate so much, or people can relate so much. So the brain budgets all its resources: water, oxygen, salt, glucose, and your brain estimates the needs of your body in all these different areas, and it attempts to meet these needs before they arise even. And again, we're largely unaware of all of this going on. But it can change our mood or our affect, which we could get into a little bit later. But these hundreds of systems and trillions of cells that we have, our brain is just trying to predict and manage it. So one of the videos I watched, or maybe it was a podcast, she said, think about your brain as the financial center of a multinational corporation. And it is, yeah, there we go, finance. Shout out to our sponsor. Deposits, so you can deposit things to your budget, like positive things like spending time with people you love and sleeping, eating
Healthy.
nourishing foods. And then things that take from your budget that are metabolically expensive might be like learning something or moving or exercising our body. So our brain is always trying to manage these resources and balance them out. And as she goes on later in the book, that when we're out of balance, when our budget is not balanced, then we see problems or we have a harder time with our emotions.
Yeah, that's what she was saying is like if with that loop that she's described, there's that resolve the error between these predictions and do something, but you've expended energy. And if we don't balance that back in, then we start a cycle again. We get depleted, and it's very difficult. And so one of the transmitters is cortisol. And I liked what she said about cortisol because we always hear about cortisol in very negative terms.
The stress hormone.
Yeah. And she says, no, it's not this. I mean, yeah, it is, but it's released whenever you need a surge of energy. So, like, if you're depleting your energy, your brain is saying, "Oh, we got to get some more stuff down to those cells because they can't operate without their, food. The energy is their food." And that includes times when you're stressed. It's not all the time. It's just whenever your cells need, you've depleted, like you've been out for a run or something. Mm-hmm. Your cortisol is going to come out because that is stress too, but it's a good stress. Its main purpose is to flood the bloodstream with glucose to provide immediate energy to cells, allowing, for example, muscle cells to stretch, contract so you can run.
And I think where
it's a good thing. Cortisol is good.
Stress might come in, though, or what we think about stress is that maybe your boss walks in and you're not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, and your cortisol might go up. But you don't necessarily need that extra energy. It's just a prediction error, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah, that prediction error thing was really interesting. Mm-hmm. How often does it make an error? But on the other hand, if you think your boss is a jerk, and that's you keep having that response to your boss, and you never resolve it, you never get your sleep, you don't get your food, you don't. She has some tips for what you can do in those situations to recover from this thing, and we're not recovering. We're just constantly sending negative thoughts in our head, making them up from nowhere, perhaps, and telling those stories again. And it creates a stress cycle.
Yeah.
That's not good. But what are emotions?
Yeah. Eleanor, why don't you explain that?
Yeah, let's see if I can even figure that one out. What are emotions? They are something that we use that word, and a lot of us don't even know what they are.
But I second it. I second that emotion.
You second that emotion. But they have a function, and what they do is they make meaning of our world. I'm unhappy. If somebody dies in front of me, I'm shocked. So your emotion is making sense of what that stimuli is bringing into you.
It's how we make sense of it.
Our brain.
Right.
Yeah, for our individual function. And then the other thing that the emotion function does is then, okay, well, what am I going to do about it? Because now that I've labeled it with meaning, I can then assimilate what's going to happen next, and then I can regulate the body budget to accommodate that. Mm-hmm. So they're critical. It's a challenge, I think, because what she was saying about the way we used to think about emotions is that what she thinks is they are not built in, they're not automatic.
We're not born with this quote-unquote fingerprint of when we're happy, this is exactly what happens in our body.
Like a genetic code or something.
And we know it. We know that this is happiness. Right. No, she says there's concepts that then we create meaning around, and there's variability in what happy does in my body, but we can categorize that. Yeah, the categorization, they're not universal, which I thought was really fun to think about. It's like not all of us have the same idea about that, and culturally we don't either. Right, and we, in America, we've kind of enforced this happy, sad, whatever, and just like other cultures have picked it up. But then when she went out to people in very remote areas that aren't adopting this American culture or even aware of us, right? Yeah, the Hazdas. Yeah, thank you. They didn't have that same awareness of emotions. Yeah, wasn't that interesting how she brought that in? I mean, she's done a comprehensive discussion on this. Super comprehensive. And then she says they're not triggered. You make them. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. We think, oh, that triggered my emotion. Mm-hmm. So towards the end of the book, which I'm going to jump over there and we can get back to it later, but on this thing about triggered, in the court system, you can say, my anger made me shoot you. Grounds of passion. And so she takes her theory not only into the biology like I've been talking about, and we'll go to some other places she takes it, but it's also in the way we've structured our society and our legal system, and she's proposing some radical views there. So we may or may not discuss those. But anyway, so they're not built in, they're not universal, and they're not triggered, so therefore they are constructed, and that is her idea. We construct them. We make them.
And we do it in the context of language. We need words to label them, and if we don't have enough words, we need to learn them. And then we put, like Kristen said, we put them in categories. So let's say you have a concept that's making the sensory input meaningful and creating an explanation. Then you have prototypes. She likes that better than categories. Like, oh, there's a car, but there are lots of different cars, right?
Right.
Or, oh, no, that's a bird, and a bird's different than a car. So we can discriminate that because we have a word. And our social network has agreed that that's what we're going to call that stuff. This just blows my mind.
Are you ready to take control of your health and wellness journey, but don't want to do it alone? Look no further than Well Balanced Nutrition. We offer personalized nutrition and wellness coaching tailored to your unique needs. Our integrative, whole person approach combines the latest evidence-based practices with compassionate guidance. Whether you're managing health concerns or seeking to optimize your well-being, take the first step towards a healthier, happier you by booking a free 15-minute consult with one of our registered dietitians at wellbalancednutrition.com.
Okay, then she says, well, that's really not important for emotions. We need goal-based concepts. So what is the goal of a car? It's to move us around. Mm-hmm. Well, you can move around on a train or a boat or other things too, bicycle. So it gets you see how your brain is in there? And we're
making these connections and predictions.
Yeah, to get to the solution that we need. So you have to have this word, and then everybody has to agree to it. And we're going to say they're goal-based concepts. And then we get what we call collective intentionality, which is a group of people that agree these concepts exist.
Mm. Well, you know how we said that it is kind of cultural too.
Oh, absolutely.
I enjoyed learning in different languages. There's different types of emotions that
we don't have.
English speakers don't have.
Yeah.
Because we haven't made that. Like, I'm not going to remember the words. Do you have any notes on the actual
I can't
words?
say it. It's a German word.
Good, yeah.
And what it means, because we've run into one with Brene Brown too.
We have, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't say that was Schaffengrade or whatever.
Schadenfreude.
Thank you. That one. Well, the other one
That's
I've
one
shared.
of my favorite words.
Oh, you'll like this one if you can look it up. And I'll text it to you. But it means a face that needs to be slapped. Or punched. And they have a word for that in German. We don't have a word for that. So this is granularity, this emotional granularity, having specific words for all these.
Backpfeifengeist.
Yes.
Backpfeifengeist.
That's it.
Yeah.
And say, what do they say it means?
Backpfeifengeist. Yeah. It is a face that needs to be slapped.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced that? I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's different from, something else that you're angry, you're mad, you're like, it hurt me. That's different. Yeah.
Backpfeifengeist.
Oh, he's going to be over there for an hour working on that.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to figure it out.
Can I put Sal on this?
Yeah, here he goes. Oh.
Is there a Spanish word that's in between like and love? Like I enjoy your presence, I need your presence?
Te quiero.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. How would you describe that in English?
I have strong affection towards you.
But it's not like or love. So it's a word that we don't necessarily.
It's synonymous with love, but it's not the word for love.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and there was another German word, Gelslig, something like that, but it means the fondness you have for your friends. That warm
that's a good one too.
Friend thing. We don't have a word for that.
Just like hanging out with your friends.
Yeah, but it's that feeling you get from that.
When you're doing that,
Yeah. So not to pick on the Germans and the Spanish, but the Buddha culture, which is maybe not a national culture, right? Buddhism goes across cultures at some level, or does it? I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out my ear. But they don't have some concepts that we have. They just don't express them. I'm trying to think of her example on that. I'll have to look that up. But anyway,
But all
she
this
went
to
into that
say
religious variabilities too, because based on your spiritual community, there are certain things that you're taught, and she does take into account some of the Christian doctrine in here too. Yeah.
All that to say that emotions can be different in different cultures. And that's to her point that we turn concepts and make them meaningful.
Yeah, and that she calls that new term emotional acculturation. And she says Americans, you brought this up, we prefer high arousal, pleasant states. And other cultures don't necessarily do that. So we're kind of conflict nationally. We're distinct in promoting things that get us high, woo, get us up, get us feeling happy. That's American.
Like we like to be smiley and bubbly.
I guess so, yeah.
Not too serious.
Well, then she brings up the idea of that you experience a world of your own construction. So my world is the one I create. And I'm having a great time here with you all today.
Exactly.
I'm happy to be in your world, Eleanor.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we played baseball. We had a pitcher, and the family would always yell, "Hey, Michael, it's your world and we're in it."
This is your world. I'm just a squirrel trying to get a nut.
Yeah. So that's a mind blower to me too. Although I think in the sales literature, if you read some of the business literature, they are always talking about what you think is going to create the outcome of your encounter with your clients or your customers. So I think some of the stuff she's talked about has already been embraced by a lot of people. They just haven't taken the granularity of explaining how and why it works.
Right.
And that's what she's doing in this book.
So another thing I really found interesting is that the affect part. So based on, we talked about the body budget and how our brain is always trying to manage all the resources. But we're not really aware of that in the detailed sense. But she says we do have this fuzzy feeling related to where our body budget is. And she calls that affect and kind of relates it to mood. So if we're in a bad mood, that can affect our thoughts and our predictions. And this goes against what a lot of people repeat. I think that comes from Gandhi, is that your beliefs become your thoughts become your words, and your words become your actions. And she's like, well, it's really your body budget and your affect, and then your thoughts and actions, right?
Yes.
That's a new twist on things.
That's what I'm saying. She's and she puts forth a good argument why you could accept what she says. On the affect thing, there was a quote in there that I liked. Affect is in the driver's seat and rationality is a passenger. So when your mood is altered, your rational thought might not be what it would be if you were in a better state. And the predictions are different because of that depressed body budget.
And it gives us a new thing to think about when we're not feeling that great. She says, well, maybe we just need to take a nap or drink a glass of water. And in health and wellness, we've used these things before, but just bringing it back to, my body budget. What's maybe missing or low, and how can I bump up that body budget and maybe my mood? And she also says, because of our environment can affect that mood too, that maybe just change your environment and see if that changes your affect.
Yeah, she has a section on personal responsibility, which is, to me, I take that into the environment I create around me as my choice. In most cases. I mean, there are some limitations on that. But even in, you think about the people in, awful situations like concentration camps. And somehow some of those people created their environment so that they could tolerate it. And that was a personal responsibility issue. They made a decision. I'm going to think this way. Or people in prison, you've heard them talk about, how do I accommodate this extreme environment? And most of us don't have those extreme environments to deal with. And we can choose, who we bring into our environment, who are the people around the table, or, what color the wall is, if I have a window or if I go outside, those kinds of things. Yeah. So she has a chapter on the emotions and illness, which was a good one in there. And some of her recommendations on when your body budget's out is make sure that you're eating healthy and you're exercising and your sleep, which is what I said when we started this conversation. It's good advice, simple advice, and yet it's hard for us to do.
I had some highlighted areas. Can I share those? And that emotions
Yeah, because
and
she has
illness?
some nice tips in there that I liked.
Tips and just things to think about. So she says the traditional view of depression is that negative thoughts cause negative feelings. I'm suggesting it's the other way around. Your feelings right now drive your next thought as well as your perceptions and predictions.
Which is that driver's seat and passenger concept.
So in depression, in effect, you're locked into a cycle of uncorrected predictions, trapped in an adverse past where your metabolic needs were high. And then this just goes into kind of a negative cycle that she goes on to describe. And then one of the tips, you said tips, she says to keep a diary of positive experiences, which can ease the drain on the body budget when you're feeling depressed. And then I highlighted this because I thought it was important. At the very least, these results, because she talked about a woman who stimulated an area in the brain and it, for that moment, eased depression. And she says, at the very least, these results should help spread the word that depression is a brain disease and not just a shortage of happy thoughts. I thought that was important to share.
Yes, it is, yeah.
And so, just in short, I wrote that depression, it happens when our prediction is dialed up. We're always trying to predict, and our prediction error is dialed down low. So we're not correcting that this happened in the past and it's no longer happening again.
Yeah, because it happened once before, it's going to happen again, which is not true necessarily.
And then in anxiety, it's where the prediction error is dialed up, and we feel like we're not making good predictions, or we're always making wrong predictions maybe, and then insufficient predictions, so we're always living in mystery, and that makes us feel anxious. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting new way to think of it in these new terms. So, yeah.
Well, I want to go back to the simpler stuff like do yoga and get a massage.
Yeah.
It's that completing the cycle thing that she's talking about. You've got to give your body time to recover. And so if we don't build in and schedule time, which was one of her ideas, and adjust our physical surroundings and include gratitude and giving and read, like we're doing. Read with us, folks, and learn new words. I mean, we've got a whole new vocabulary in this book, a lot of italicized words we could help with.
She says that we help each other regulate our body budgets. So we need, our
community.
Bodies aren't made to be alone. And so when we're around each other, and it could be a negative thing too, right? But hopefully it's mostly a positive thing that we're affecting each other's body budgets. And then with personal responsibility, it reminds me that she says, not only our own reality, but we think that we're pretty good at predicting other people's emotions and how they feel. And she's like,
let it
no,
go. Let that go.
Way too much variability, right? We can't read faces and know exactly. So don't say,
I know how you feel.
Yeah. Or like, oh, you're angry. Maybe it's, oh, it seems like you may be angry, or...
Why not explore that with the other person?
What happened to you?
Yeah, that goes back to another book.
That's you're talking about social reality and social influence, and that idea that we do need the community, that synchrony between people, that influencing our emotions. And I think you're right, it can be a negative thing, because some of that mass thinking that we get into, I think that's definitely observable. Right. You can see a student in a classroom who has, I hate the teacher, I don't want to learn this stuff. Man, that spreads like wildfire. You have a child in there that says, oh, I'm so happy. it doesn't catch, So, and that idea of evolutionarily, back to Darwin, we're programmed to scope out the whole thing to see if there's any threat out there. And that's why we're watching and predicting. Our brain in the background is trying to keep us alive. And so it's scoping all that out and making predictions about it. And they can be influenced by this high alert thing like, oh, fear, there's something out there we need to. And then we all hub up on that together. And if someone just says, hey, let's stop and think about this, pause, breathe, it could be interesting.
And maybe we can aim to be a positive influence on others' body budgets rather than a negative one.
Yes, exactly. And that's that personal responsibility. I know we got to wrap this up soon, but I did want to say she has a chapter towards the end of the book on the legal system. And let's see, she has one on human nature and on your pets, which was really interesting. But the one on the legal system caused me to pause. And I thought, oh, man, if you accept this theory of constructed emotions, it's going to change a whole lot in the legal system. And and maybe I'm speaking from my first read through, and maybe I didn't grab it all the way I should have, but she said, we've done work looking at judges and their rulings before lunch and after lunch. Did you read that at all? Anyway, so there's variability on the same similar types of cases that their judgment is influenced by their body budget.
Right, maybe they're
in a harsher way
Uh-huh.
before lunch, not so much after lunch. And then she's suggesting, and then that's just the judgment, but prior to that, the trial by jury. She says since jurors are not educated in this emotional constructed theory and they see the video of the face and they say, that person's mad, they're going to make their decisions based on the older theory of emotion, perhaps.
Right. Yeah.
Which could be very inaccurate based on all the work she took tearing apart all the scientific reports earlier in the book, that doesn't hold water anymore. The classical theory does not hold water, in her opinion. So maybe we don't need trial by jury anymore. It should be a trial by a group of judges that have been educated in this constructed emotional theory.
And fed.
Yeah, but I'm a little troubled by that. I thought I want some legal folks to read that chapter.
Yeah, no, I think it's really
or this
important.
book with me and to have a conversation because that's breaking up the Constitution in a way based on this new science idea. Which what happens? I just went, this is interesting. She's gone everywhere in this book.
Well, you mentioned judges. Well, I remember hearing about the juries that if in a sexual harassment case, if the person isn't feeling or looking like she is sad or
right,
fearful or whatever,
remorseful,
then they dismiss the sexual harassment or the sexual abuse or whatever because that woman wasn't looking fearful or acting sad. And that, again, goes back to the classical view. And, she was probably hiding it anyway.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right. So it's a very interesting challenge to the way we're operating.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, this is Sal Valencia, your financial pal with Edward Jones. For those who don't know me, I am an advisor that will sit down with you and go over your personal and financial goals. I will break them into 3 categories: needs, wants, and wishes. I enjoy working through life challenges with my clients and help educate those who aren't familiar with investing. If you ever have questions and need someone reliable and trustworthy, give me a call. My number is 336-748-1271. Hola, me llamo Salvador Valencia y trabajo con Edward Jones. Soy un asesor financiero y lo que hago es planear para el futuro. Sé que hay muchos cambios que pueden ocurrir, pero siempre estará ahí por ustedes cuando pase algo. Si tienen preguntas sobre inversiones o cómo su dinero puede trabajar más fuerte para ustedes, llámame. Mi número es 336-748-1271.
I heard a chapter on pets. I thought, oh my, we were talking about humans, and now all of a sudden we're talking about animals and humans and the relationship between animals and humans. And this picture of the growling dog. Is the dog really growling or not? Do dogs have emotion? Blah, 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 blah. So y'all, I'm going to recommend this book for those people who would be interested in a pretty heavy read, but think they'd like to learn more about this idea of what are our emotions and how are we forming them and how they influence what we do every day.
I recommend the book as well. If you're not into reading heavier things like this, then at least look her up on YouTube. She has some really good, she's got a TED Talk and then a nice visual course that goes over at least some of the basics in here.
She's got a fun, I like to read all the stuff in the book, and her acknowledgments are really fun to read too. She cites everybody that, it's an extensive list of people who have talked with her through this thing, let her access their macaque monkeys, all sorts of fun things. But my favorite one was when she credits her husband. She says that he never flinched, not once, even after it became clear that I had gotten into something much more challenging than either of us knew at the time. Dan's other superpower, beyond his uncanny ability to choose the right size Tupperware every time, is that he can make me laugh when no one else can because he knows me in a way that no one else does. I awaken every day of my life filled with gratitude and awe that he is beside me. I thought,
well, that is her personal gratitude list.
Yeah, and it's who and why, how things turned out. So, lot more to say about this book, but I think I need 2 more reads before I can do it well.
Yeah, but I think we did a good job of touching the surface. Hopefully, we tweaked your interest in how emotions are made, and check out this book or check out Lisa Feldman Barrett and her work, because I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think we need to follow her. She's young. She'll be writing some more if she hasn't already. One disclaimer, though. I would say I was disappointed because she did all this heady brain discussion of emotions, but I really wanted to know, okay, well, what are counselors and therapists supposed to do now? Because if they're operating on techniques in behavior management or what we call it, behavior or cognitive therapies and stuff like that, is this going to change the way they do that?
I was curious about that too.
And she did not, and I don't think she could in this book. So I'm hoping someone picks this up and then gives some guidance so that we don't continue to maybe not get the better results. So I'll be interested in watching for that.
Maybe she can write another book.
Or maybe some of her colleagues that are skilled in that set of it can take her work and say, this is how we would incorporate it. You've talked in some of our reading about what you do with your clients based on some of the reading. And it's changed your practice.
Absolutely.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Eleanor at 360 Health.
Are you?
foryou.com. And if you're interested in wellness like I am and preventing or pushing off some of the bad outcomes, prevention's my word. Reach out. Let me know if we can have a conversation. I'd like to help you with product selection that can reduce your exposures to some of the things that can harm us in the long run. Because what you do every day counts.
Absolutely. And I'm Kristen Norton. I'm a registered dietitian and co-owner of Well Balanced Nutrition. Please check us out at wellbalancednutrition.com. We offer nutrition coaching online and in person in North Carolina. And that's all. Y'all.
That's all she wrote.
And opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.